You could join us. I know it's after lunch and you're probably sleepy, and the material is a little bit dry, but we'll try to get through it. The reconciling tips to prepare for year end. I know it's not year end for a lot of you yet, but I'm going to take a little poll and see when your year ends are so that I know what the audience is. So go ahead and answer. I'm going to make this participative. So being after lunch, you can participate. Go ahead and answer. And collecting responses now. And we've got 100%. Thanks for answering. So most of you are in December, which is great. So now's the time to start getting prepared. Great. And then next, I'm going to have one other quick poll. And mark the items that you're interested in reconciling. Mark all that apply. Okay. There's still someone who hasn't voted. Maybe they're just monitoring. Okay, so there we go, 100%'s voted. I'll close the poll and share. So we have some people payroll, some people submodules to the GL, and 100% for the 1099. So that'll be great. All right, so I'll start in. I'll start with the agenda, and that is next slide. Our agenda is the payroll reconciliation tips prior to year end, reconciling the submodule trial balances to GL, and reviewing our vendor and 1099 data. Next slide. We'll start with the payroll reconciliation tips. So I've had a lot of customers in the past do this after the close of either Q2 or Q3. Closing the year in GP. So you can close the year in GP throughout the year, even though you know you're still in current year processing payrolls, just to see what your data looks like. And this is a good time to do it. Now that we're in September, probably after your last payroll in September, you would do this so that you can get a lot of your data cleaned up and be ready for that last quarter of the year and smooth sailing for closing payroll. So first we'll close the year, then we'll run our wage report and reconcile totals. I'm going to take you into GP in a few minutes and show you how to do this. We'll run the W-2 validation report to clean up data issues. Then we'll be sure to remove the year-end info to continue running our current year payrolls, because our payroll person would get an error if we don't do that. So GP. Okay, so we'll also, before you close the year, make sure that you have applied the latest tax table. There have been a few issued throughout the year, and I don't know how up to date everyone is with this. So you would come in here and you can do maintenance, maybe. Okay, it's kind of lagging on me. Your US payroll updates, and then you can do it through that, or we can give you a SQL script to run against your system dynamics database to update your taxes. So you want to do that before you close your year. Then we'll go to routines, and I'm going to send you out a checklist of where to find all these different tasks so that you can have this in front of you as you do it, because it gets tricky if you haven't done it before. So you want to move over the routines, and my mouse is not working. Do I have controls? There we go. Nope. It's okay. So our year-end closing, we'll go in and close the year. So it'll come up and it'll say 2020 for you. Go ahead and process. You want to make sure no payrolls are going on, obviously, when you do this. That's just our PTO. It'll close the year. It'll be quick for me because I'm in Fabricam, not many employees. Okay, and then after that, we're going to run the year-end wage report. This will give us all our totals. This is what our W-2s totals will look like. I'll run it to screen. And what we're going to focus on here, you can certainly go ahead and look at this and make sure everything looks good. I check the taxes up here, make sure I'm in the, got the right tax tables applied. But then I'll go down, the very important piece is going to be your final sheet. And we'll just pull it down here. And you want to look at, come on, 45 pages. Come on, it's not quite here yet. All right, our final page is what you want to focus on. These are your totals year to date. So this will be comprised of, if you run this after your September 30th, your final payroll of that period, it will be comprised of your 3 quarters. So what you would do is run your 3 quarters of 941 and set it up on a spreadsheet, an Excel spreadsheet, so that you can get your totals and so forth, and then compare it against this, because you want this to match up. Your wages, Social Security wages, Medicare wages, your state tax wages, any locality wages, and then you'll also want to reconcile your special items, your box 12, your 401k totals, your health insurance deductions, dependent care box 10. You want to come in here if you have it, excuse me. And then we will, you'll take that, put it on a spreadsheet, and then run the 941s, etc., and compare. We can also do smart lists. So if you have Smart List Designer or Builder, you can go into Smart List. There's tables that hold the year-end information. And I just built out the year-end wages table. And there's only 1 year in here for Fabricam 2027. So I see all my employees up here. You can see that I'm missing an address right here. I can go in and check my W-2 box for my pension plan and make sure that those are all set correctly. A lot of people don't pay attention to these, where if an employee is eligible to join a retirement plan, you want to mark it in their tax information card that they are eligible. So this person, let's say, I built a go-to on this smart list, so I could just come in here, look at Kate, and put in her retirement plan. I'll need to reclose the year after I make any changes like this, like the address, things like that, so that it's pulling the data again. So any changes that you make out here, you'll need to remove your year-end information and rerun it. Okay, so we'll save that. So that'll be good. And then I've also done a special year-end smart list. This will show me this is my 401k deductions, box 12. So if these totals aren't right, let's say that this person has like way too much, or your totals are not matching your GL, we have some SQL scripts that we can run to help you with that. So I've written 4 SQL scripts, and it will show you, this is our deduction cards. In each deduction card, there's an area for 4 different W-2 boxes. So if these get duplicated by any reason, which is easy to do, either in our deduction setup in GP or in the employee card deductions or benefits for GP, you can see that we have issues and we can fix them in our SQL database if we wanted to. So I'm going to show you what that looks like in GP. Back to cards, maybe, and deduction. Hopefully I'm not going too fast for everyone, but I think we're all good. Oops, I've lost my screen here. There we go. Bar. I'm typing. There we go. And on the 401k. So down here at the bottom, you've got your W-2 box and W-2 label. That's rolling down from your setup of this deduction. Excuse me, but my setup's fine in this regard. It's just the employee got jazzed up somehow. So if I use that arrow, you can see, and it's kind of hard to discern that I'm on W-2 box 2, and then box 3, and then box 4. So I could fix it right here, but that's really difficult. So that's why we do it in SQL, and we can help you with that if you have any issues tying out any of your special boxes, box 12 or 14, the other or the special or the dependent care. Okay, so that's just one thing to look out for. Another thing that we like to do is run a SQL script that will help us look at your 941 totals in comparison with the employee summary totals within GP. And if I go ahead and I execute this script, I've got it set for my year and the whole year instead of just the quarter. A lot of people do this, run the script quarterly as they're doing their 941s to make sure that they have no errors in between the two. So I'll go ahead and execute that. It gives me my results, gross wages, federal sheltered wages, our federal taxable benefits, equating to our federal wages on our on our 941, and then comparing it against our wages on the employee summary. So these are equal, there's no difference, but what you may see are employee lines stating which employee ID is off or not reconciled correctly. It could have occurred because you had a manual adjustment and didn't get the taxes right, or you had like a negative deduction and didn't do the manual adjustment afterward correctly. So there's different reasons why those would be out of kilter, and we can help you resolve those issues as well. Okay, back to GP. And then another report that we would also run will be under routines, and it's under the print W-2. It's the validation report, and I don't know if everyone runs this, but this is also invaluable. You can run it and see what kind of issues you might have here. Basic issues here are issues between your tax amounts, calculated tax amounts, versus what they're showing, invalid social security numbers, and then address lines. Address lines you can basically overlook. The invalid social security numbers need to be corrected, as you know. And then you want to review any type of tax withholding differences. If they're pennies, because there are rounding issues occasionally, like if there's 1 or 2 pennies, I would ignore them, but an amount this big, $7 or so, you would definitely want to look into and see what's wrong with it and why the employee summary is not working out right. Okay, so that's one thing. And then if you guys are using Greenshades as well, you know that when you upload your W-2s, that will also help you find more issues with the W-2 information. Okay, so that is about it. I know that I'm going over all this very quickly. We can help you with it, and I'm also going to send this checklist out so that you can, pay attention to all the items that I've covered just now. At the end of this process, you want to make sure that you remove the year-end information so that you can continue running payrolls for the current year. So we'll go into the utilities and remove year-end information. We'll just take this and insert and process. And it says, are you sure you want to remove information for the current year? A lot of people get really frightened. Oh no, you're removing something. You're just removing the information from the year-end tables that are populated when you close the year. So you definitely want to remove them to continue payroll processing. And we're back to start. And next slide, please. Okay, so the next item we have is the submodules tying to GL. There is a tool that will help you. It will not reconcile for you, but it will help you find out what your differences are. So first of all, and you should be doing this monthly besides just for year end, but you totally want to do it for year end to make sure that your auditors are happy. You'll run your historical age trial balance for each of your submodules, and then you'll compare it to your GL control accounts to make sure that it's all working. If they don't match, then you're going to use this Reconcile to GL tool. We have it for payables management, receivables management, bank rec, and inventory. So GP, please. And I'll show you what this looks like. First of all, I'm going to go into purchasing and just show you how to run a historical trial balance. I know most of you probably know how to do this, but some of my clients haven't been able to do it correctly, so I'm just going to show you quickly. You'll go into the historical age trial balance. You'll go into your option or create a new one and then modify this information. Make sure that you're aging it as of the date you want to see. In my case, I'm going to do 3/31/2027. And then you want to make sure that you're putting in the date range so that this age trial balance will cut off at the date you want to see it through. You don't want to see any transactions that are happening on April 1st. Okay, so it's under this drop down, the ranges, and it's hiding out at the bottom, the date. So you'll put in the date, the from, you'll just accept the blank date because you want your first date. You could have some very old payables in there with, old dates in there. And then you'll take it through your current date that you want to see it, insert, and then run it so that you can compare this to your control total in GL. So I found after running this that it doesn't match my GL. So that in that case, I'm going to go back to financial. And excuse me, I'll go into routines, reconcile to GL. And here is where I have the different modules available to get my summaries and give me some tips on what doesn't match up between the submodule and the actual GL. I'll make sure that the reconciliation number will auto advance. I'll put in my reconciliation date, my date range, make sure that all my accounts that equal that submodule will be in here. So I've got my payables account. I'll put in an output file because I want an output for Excel, and then I'll hit process. So this will come up and bring me an Excel listing. And I'm going to send you a document that gives you some items to look for as to why these might be different. You're going to want to check a lot of things, right? That batches are posted, that you haven't done any direct entries to your AP account in GL, that you've got your discounts, your tracking discounts are correct. If you've had documents that were voided in a different period than what they were originally posted in. Some posting interruptions might have prevented a batch from reaching your GL. There's outstanding GL batches to be posted, etc. So there's all kinds of differences. On the left, you'll see your submodule. On the right, you'll see your GL entry. The first area is going to have unmatched transactions. This will show you where you're off. You might have something on the payable side, didn't get to the GL side. You might have something on the GL side that someone manually entered that they shouldn't have, that hit the control account. Then you'll have some potentially matched, and then you'll have all your matched transactions. And these reports can get big if you have a lot of payables. Then at the bottom, you'll see our beginning balances, our payables versus our GL, and then our ending, our payables versus GL, and our differences. And you see a lot of it was at the very beginning balance, but there is something else that happened in this month as well. So in that case, you'll want to keep going back to like the beginning of the year, because hopefully when you closed your last year, they matched up. And that you'll start with January and go, if you're December year end, of course, start with January and just go through each month and find out where you're off. And then you can fix it. And when you rerun these, they should all match. So that is tying out your submodules to your GL. And we can help you with this if you have any issue. Sometimes things don't make all the tables. If you've had posting interruptions and you may not necessarily know that, we can help you dig into the tables and see what your differences are. And then back here, okay, yeah, there we go. Okay, so next we have our 1099s, which everyone's interested in. That you want to, now's a good time to start getting your data cleaned up for it. You can make sure that you run your 1099 list to make sure that you have your federal ID numbers from your vendors all in the system. Make sure that you have good addresses. Check any reasonableness on your amounts. Then you would run the GL trial balance on any accounts that contain 1099able transactions, like your subcontracting, things like that, that you would find missing vendors that you maybe want to mark for 1099s that are not currently on your 1099 list. And then we'll edit the vendors in our 1099 transaction information. And I'll go back to GP and show you how to do that. Okay, so I'll go to purchasing. First thing that I'm going to do is run my 1099 list, which is under routines again. Routines, print 1099. And I'll just go ahead and print. I'm not going to print the forms. I'm just going to print a listing. And what shows up here is we have not many vendors. We probably have more, and we just haven't identified them all. We're missing tax IDs. We're missing addresses. And we might have totals that don't look reasonable. So after I run this list, we can go back to our vendor. We can fix our vendors. And we can also go into our edit 1099 transactions to get this information cleaned up. So a lot of people, what they used to do, and also what we use when we first implement you, we go into cards and we put in the 1099 details. Okay, so this is what it looks like. And I think my first example had that. Okay, if I click on year, I'll see that we've got the box 7 for $9,900. If you go in and do it this way, you don't have existing transactions in your system. That's how you would load them. But if you do have existing transactions in the system, we want to go into another area to modify each voucher transaction. So this is one way of doing that. If you want to do it this way, not the cleanest way to do it, but you would go back to your month, and then this was actually placed in January. You would just simply click on the line and punch it in. Put in your number right there, and then when you click on the year, you've got the year total here. Not the cleanest way. Better way, if you've got your transactions, you can go into transactions, and down at the bottom here you have edit 1099 transaction information. And in my test company, I don't have really up-to-date information, but I'll just show you. Let's pretend this is 2027. So on Beaumont, for example, let's say that they had this non-employee compensation in here, but this one really wasn't 1099able. We can just go in here and make it not a 1099 transaction. And let's say this amount was wrong. It was only 1,500 that was 1099able. I can click directly into this dollar amount and type in 1,500, maybe here. And there we go. And then on someone who wasn't a 1099 vendor, and we change them and make them a 1099 vendor, you would come back into this transaction window, and instead of, see the radio button, it says 1099 debit, you would click all debit transactions and redisplay and see everything here, so that you could modify them and make them a 1099 transaction afterward, instead of using the card for the 1099 detail. So that way you have control on all your transactions and can identify them, debit and credit transactions. And then after you've finished with this, you process, and it will give you an audit report of what you've changed in here, in case you're you'll try it yourself. It did happen. I think I've been modifying it too much in getting ready for this, that it didn't show up, but it will tell you what you've changed and what the differences were. So in your vendor card, if you're going to update anything, like our first one didn't have the tax ID or the address, you can come in here and you can see down at the bottom, if it's a 1099, if you've set it up under options as a 1099 vendor, and it's missing its tax number, which we'll need to complete as well. But you can change and put in a different address ID for the 1099 if it needs to go to someone else. Okay, so you just click on that, clear this, and put in an address ID. Just call it 1099 and put in the contact name, the address, etc. Okay, and then go ahead and save it. I'm just going to clear. I'm not going to change that right now. But then afterwards, you'll come back to your routines, print your 1099 again, and that information will be showing and it will be complete. So you'll go into your tax ID, fill that out, save it, and rerun your listing. Okay, so that's basically 1099s. And then, of course, Greenshades. I think there's other vendors as well, but typically I've been using Greenshades. You can upload them in e-file, the 1099 transactions. And you can do that if you're using MEM, and do it for the different companies as well, binary streams, multi-entity. Okay, so after this, I think we're about hitting the mark. Perfect timing. I'm going to run another poll and see how you're all feeling after this. So go ahead and fill this out. 100%, you're good to go. No, people are changing their answers. Okay. We're almost there. I think we're missing one person. They're probably multitasking. No, okay. Give you another second. No, going, gone. Okay, I'm gonna close the poll. So there's a few of you, it looks like, that need some help. Absolutely contact us. We'll be happy to help you with anything that we can. And thank you for attending, and happy year-end close. Next slide, please.
That was awesome, Bren. Thank you so much. You're just covering so much great content. Oh, okay. It's just very, very fun to see. I'm learning something new every time I watch you do these things. This is just great. So
thank you.
And if you do have any questions, raise your hand and I can unmute you, or type them in the question pane. We do have some upcoming webinars as well. And so